Hey geometers, let's get started by looking at some undefined terms. So the undefined terms we're dealing with are a point, a line, and a plane. These don't have like real formal definitions, but we just have like an idea of what they are. A point has no dimension. No length, no width, no nothing. It just represents a location basically. And the way we draw a point is a dot. And we name it with a capital letter. Point A, you just draw a big A next to the point. Any letter, A through Z, capital. A line has one dimension. We usually call it length, although length really only applies to line segments because rays and lines actually have infinite length. They go on infinitely. But that's the one dimension we have. We can measure how long a line segment is. It is represented by a line with two arrowheads that it extends without end. So you draw these arrows, and that means that this line goes forever in each direction. Through any 2 points, there's exactly one line. We cover that later as the point-line postulate, or the line-point postulate, one of those. And you can use any 2 points on a line to name it. So there's a bunch of ways to name lines. You can do a little cursive lowercase letter, like line L. You can say line AB, or you can write the symbol for line AB right here, although I want you to be careful. Line AB, the little symbol on top of it, has to have both arrows. I know they're really tiny in that picture, but line AB has to have both arrows. You can write it out, line BA, or you can write BA with the line symbol on top of it. So this one says line AB, this one says line BA. So just different ways to name lines. One lowercase letter, you usually put it at one end of the line, or with any 2 letters in either order. A plane has 2 dimensions. We just talk about like length and width. It's represented by a shape that looks like a floor or a wall, but remember that that also extends without end in every direction. Well, in the 2 directions that it's going, right? It goes forever this way and this way, it goes forever that way and that way. But it's just like an infinite sheet of paper. It doesn't go up or down. It's just this one plane. Through any 3 points that are not on the same line, there's exactly one plane. So what does that mean? That they can't be on the same line? If I draw 3 points that are all on the same line, X, Y, Z, there's more than one plane that can go through these 3 points. Here's like a vertical plane that goes through them, but if you can think about this line sort of like a hinge, and you're going to rotate that plane, and now it's a different plane. There's a different plane, this blue plane, it's like a horizontal plane that goes through that same line. But if you have 3 non-collinear points, say on the red plane we have a point down here, P, then you can be like, alright, XYP. I can name it with XYP, and there's not, since P is on the red plane, it's not really on the blue plane. Maybe I draw it better. So if I move P up here, you can see P is on the red plane, but it's not on the blue plane. So we can talk about the red plane as being plane XYP, or PYZ, or any 3, but not X, Y, and Z altogether. P has to be one of them. Anywho, you can use 3 points that are not all on the same line to name a plane. And these words that I was saying, collinear points are points that are on the same line, and coplanar points are points that are on the same plane. Let's try some. So A says give 2 other names for line PQ and plane R. So this might cause a little bit of confusion right here, right? Plane R. So when we name a plane, we do it with a capital letter in one of the corners of the plane, and that might get confusing because there are other capital letters around here, but notice all the other capital letters have dots with them, so those are all names of points. But the R doesn't have a dot, but it's in the corner of the plane, so that's how we label this plane to be plane R. So first let's take a look at line PQ, which I have highlighted for you. So we can call this line PQ like they did in the question. Or we could call it line QP. Or we got the little italic slanted N. We could call it line N. Oh, I guess I gave you 3 other names. No, I gave you 2 other names because this one was already there, so it's not other. How about for plane R? For plane R, we've got plane R. We could call it plane. Let's see, Q is not on it, but any of these other points, S, V, P, and T, but we can't use S, P, T because they're collinear. So V with any other 2 of these points would be a good way to name it. So you could name it plane VST, or you could call it plane VTS, or you could call it plane SPV. Anything, any 2 of these points and V is a legitimate name for that plane. Alright, so we need to name 3 points that are collinear. Okay, so the collinear points we can see that are on the same line here, S, P, and T. So we can say S, P, and T. Points S, P, and T are collinear points. Name 4 points that are coplanar. V, S, P, and T are all on plane R, so they are coplanar points. And now it's time for you to practice.